Hello and welcome to the present tense, le présent. This tutorial is going to show you hopefully how to take a verb and put it into the present tense in French, and then you'll be able to do it all the time, whenever you need to, in every single sentence. Very useful and very important. First of all, you need to know when we use the present tense in French, and we need to have a look at a few examples in English first so that you understand that. First reason you might choose the present tense is to say what you do normally. For example, if you want to say, I play tennis 3 times a week, you're talking about what you do normally. That's the key idea. So I play is in the present tense. Similarly, we stay in a 4-star hotel is talking about a regular, habitual action, something that goes on over time and currently. Do you go to France often? Although that's a question, it's still talking about what happens normally, habitually, regularly. And in English, don't be thrown by the extra do there. That's just the way we make a question in English. So do you go is the present tense of the verb go. Okay, it's just that the do is there because it's a question. So you go is the present tense that you'd want in that example. The second reason you might choose the present tense is to tell us what you are doing in the present moment, such as I am studying French and they are watching me. Okay, so those two examples are more obviously present tense, but they look very different from the examples in one. That's because in English there are several different types of present tense, namely 3. And we've got an example of all 3 there on the board, because you've got the short present tense for the normally actions, I play, but then you have this I am studying with the ing verb if it's something that happens continuously, okay? And also you've got the I am in English, which makes it present tense as well. So the key thing here, you don't need to worry about how they're formed in English, you just need to recognize that both those different types of example translate as exactly the same tense in French. So I play and I am playing are exactly the same in French. What you mustn't do is translate word for word I am and then try and translate playing. Whenever you see the ing, the ing in English, you need to be aware that it's not going to be translated word for word. Okay, that's the key thing. And hopefully we'll get that across to you with some examples later. And then the third point, which is you might see as separate, you might not see as separate, is something which is a state or a fact, or it could be an opinion, which is current, which isn't really an action, okay, such as I am English or he knows the answer. Those are present tense as well because they are going on in the current time. All right, so any of those 3 examples and you'll need a present tense. So we need to know, once we know we need the present tense, we need to know how to form it. Okay, so the first thing to note is that you need the infinitive of the verb. Now, the infinitive is the part in the dictionary, okay, or the part that ends er, ir, or re. We'll just have a look at where we can find some of those. So if you have a look at the back of the learning mat, for example, you've got lots of infinitives. And it's on the back of the foundation tier learning mat, we've said that it's the dictionary form as well. Because when you look up a verb, an action in the dictionary, what the dictionary gives you will be the infinitive. So I suggest you have a look in a dictionary and make sure you can find it. And if you look at all these infinitives, to buy, to arrive, to begin, they either end er, okay, or let's find where's an IR one down here. Sortir, venir, IR, or RE, vivre, vendre, RE. There's only, if you look through them all, there's only those three possibilities, ER, IR, or RE. And as you can see, the vast majority of them are ER verbs, okay? And that's true for all verbs, not just the ones on the back of this learning mat. So, first you need to get your infinitive, and you might get it from the dictionary, you might get it from the learning mat. The other thing to note is that the infinitive is always translated in English as to do something, to eat, to swim, to clean, to speak. Okay, and that to has the meaning of this er on the end. So when you've got the infinitive, then the next thing you need to do is check if the verb is irregular. Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but most verbs are regular and follow the pattern that I'm about to show you, but unfortunately lots of them, and especially the most common ones, the most useful ones, are irregular and don't follow the pattern. So after you've found your verb, you need to check on the learning mat or in the dictionary see if it's regular or irregular. And I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But let's just assume it's regular, because if it is irregular and you do find it on a list of verbs that don't fit the pattern, then all you do is you find the right part out of the dictionary or the learning map. There's nothing else for you to work out. They're the ones you just have to know. However, if it's not listed and it's regular, it fits the pattern, then you need to carry on. And the first job is to note, is it an ER verb, an IR verb, or an RE verb? Because the process is different for each one. Then the next thing you do is you take off that ending and you add the new ending. So let's show you an example so that you can see what I'm talking about. If we have a look at ER verbs, because they're the most common ones, the most normal, usual ones, most of them that you'll find are ER verbs, they have the following endings, okay? E, ES, E, ONS, EZ, and ENT. Hopefully we know what these words here mean, the subject pronouns, je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle. They are the 6 parts of the verb. So, je means I, tu means you. If you are talking to somebody you would call by their Christian name, their first name, if you're being informal with them. Il means he, elle means she, nous means we, vous is the other word for you, and you'd use that if you're talking to more than one person, or if you're being polite. So if you're talking to somebody whose surname you'd use, who's higher up in society than you, if you like, being polite to them. And then there are 2 words for they, il and elle. If the group that is they are all girls, then you use elle. If they're not all girls, then you use il. So il is the most usual one, because usually it's at least a mix. Okay? And then these are your endings. E, ESE, ONS, EZ, ENT. And the best way to do this is to simply learn those endings so that you can chant E, ESE, ONS, EZ, ENT. Because if you can repeat them off the top of your head, you'll be able to use them much easier. Alright, so let's take our example of jouer. Jouer, you can see we've got out of the dictionary or off the back of the learning mat, and we've found that it's an ER verb. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get rid of that ER, and then we have our stem. Okay, so our stem we then add these endings to. Alright, so to get I play or I am playing, or I do play even, remember we said they're the same, you take this stem, the ER taken off, and you add the je ending, the ending for I. Je joue, I play, or I am playing. And then the same process for the rest of them. So you play or you are playing becomes tu joues. See, we've taken the stem and we've added the ending, and we've put the 2 together to make the word. Okay, tu joues can mean you play or you are playing. And then the same with this one. Take this stem, add the ending for he or she, and we've got il joue or elle joue. He plays or she plays, or he is playing or she is playing. Nous jouons, vous jouez, and il joue. Exactly the same process, okay? So you all the time you're taking the stem and you're adding the ending. And that's all there is to it. And that's it. All ER verbs that are regular work in exactly the same way. If it's an IR verb, and there are some, and if it's not irregular, then the endings are different. IS, ISIT, ISSONS, ISSEZ, ISSENT. And again, it's best if you can learn those endings, because then you'll be able to do every single IR verb off the top of your head. Works exactly the same way. To finish, the infinitive is finir. Take off that IR and add the endings. IS, ISIT, ISSONS, ISSEZ, ISSENT. Je finis, tu finis, il finit, elle finit, nous finissons, vous finissez, ils finissent, elles finissent. And it's worth noting the pronunciation here as well. I didn't talk about with the jus, but you can hear these endings. The last letter is obviously silent. Je finis, tu finis, il finit, elle finit. And then with this last one, ils finissent, elles finissent, we don't hear the ENT at all. And that's exactly the same with they play. Ils jouent. You don't say ils jouent, they play. The ENT on all these verbs is always silent. So, ils jouent, ils finissent. And then the last section, RE verbs, again, different set of endings. S nothing, ONSEZENT. Okay, and then same process. Vendre means to sell. We take off the RE and we add the endings onto that stem. Je vends, tu vends, il vend, elle vend, nous vendons, vous vendez, ils vendent, elles vendent. And we can see the same process as with to play, jouer. You take the stem each time, that's repeated throughout, and then you add the endings. So if you want to say I sell or I am selling, you take the stem and you take the je ending. All you need to learn are the endings, and then you can do the lot. Okay? There are, as I said, exceptions to that rule. So there are 4 verbs that keep cropping up and I recommend you learn. And the first 2 are être, to be, which goes je suis, tu es, il est, elle est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, elles sont. And I suggest that one you learn parrot fashion, you memorize it, because the number of times you use I am, you are, he is, it is, we are, etc., it's a lot, so it's worth learning. The same with avoir, to have. Very, very different. You can't take the stem and add the endings with this. It's just totally random. J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. Again, chant it over and over again, and eventually it will go in. J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. You just have to learn them. But those 2 are really, really vitally important, because they will help you form the perfect tense as well. And then I would also suggest you have a go at learning aller. Je vais, tu vas, il va, elle va, nous allons, vous allez, ils vont, elles vont, because that's incredibly useful. That should say you go. I've put an extra E on there. Sorry about that. And then faire as well is well worth learning. Je fais, tu fais, il fait, elle fait, nous faisons, vous faites, ils font, elles font. And if you can learn those 4, you've done really well, really. Okay, all the other irregular verbs are found on the back of the learning mat, or in the middle of the dictionary. There we go.